welcome to New Game Plus. I'm Tim, I'm joined by Donald. How are you?
I sit here astounded because, Tim, did you know, well, you probably do know since you're the one that told me this fact, that GTA 5 has sold over 70 million copies, was it?
75 million copies.
Sweet jeepers.
Which is ridiculous. You look at the console numbers that people actually own, and it's far superseding that. I mean, granted, it's on multiple consoles, and it's on PC as well. That it just speaks to the longevity of the game, that people are still purchasing it, playing it, and it's still one of the higher played games on Steam.
And I think that's partially due to like two parts. GTA Online, which just continued to be developed, and people will continue to spend lots of real-world time and money in that.
Yes.
But also just the mod community, which has absolutely thrived.
Yes.
With GTA 5.
Particularly with the announcement of the new Mario open world game.
Yeah.
The modification of Mario into GTA, but it's not just.
I would love to play as play as your GTA characters in New Donk City.
Yes, but it's not just funny little snippets like that. There's full stories, full like areas that have been modded out, and gameplay modes and everything that's just added to the lifespan of the game, which makes it for
it's all just feeds back into Twitch and YouTube fodder as well, which then perpetuates more sales, which perpetuates more mods, and that's the circle of life continues once for all. And is there a Lion King mod for GTA?
Probably.
Cool.
But we'll probably be expecting one soonish, I would think. Like, it's been a while since that's been released, and they've got to be putting all this money into something.
No,
possibly
I think that
GTA?
like when you're spending 23 hours a day counting your money, then that extra hour, I suppose you could try and develop GTA Japan, except you've already got what's called Hong Kong with Sleepy Dogs, you've got GTA Chinatown Wars, and you've got kind of GTA Japan already, what with Yakuza 0, which is what we're going to review later this episode.
Yes, also in this episode, we'll be looking at Japan games old and new.
Yes, we'll be looking at the recent passing of Masaya Nakamura, the founder of Namco, as well as a handy guide on how to beat Mr. Shakedown in Yakuza 0.
But first up, we'll go into Digimon.
Now, of course, I'm joined by Trey for a game that was the game that you genuinely got given in the 90s when your parents didn't know the difference between their mons, which is, of course, Digimon World.
That's right.
And so the game is Digimon World Next Order for the PlayStation 4. PlayStation 4 Digimon games. What is happening?
They're still happening. No one believed that. We thought history had forgotten them, but it turns out they've been releasing this entire time. Just no one noticed. No one noticed.
And like we've done a pretty good job of covering them. To be fair, like I think we're one of the few places that has actually reviewed all of them.
Yeah, because we've got reviewers that are too old.
Yeah, too old. Nice save. Yeah, and the previous game was Cyber Sleuth.
That's
right.
And
that played it a lot straighter than you would expect kind of Digimon games. People who can remember Digimon games because they're old enough to remember them, remember the kind of the quote unquote breeding, the raising, all of that kind of stuff. Cyber Sleuth went a different kind of way. It was a little bit more straight. Played it straighter.
It forgoed pretty much any breeding aspect and treated them purely as mons. Yeah. So it's sort of similar to the other mon game. We don't mention
Monster
that
Hunt.
one. Yeah. But as a result, a lot of fans did feel that it sort of lost a bit of the Digimon feel. Like when you're not raising Digimon, what are you doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the original Digimon World game was a straight monster raiser. In fact, there was no story. It was sort of an aimless lark around as you drag Digimon and unlock new areas. This game, Next Order, funnily enough, despite its name, is actually a huge step backwards. It's pretty much recreating the basic idea of the original Digimon World. You're plopped in the Digimon World. You've got a basic village. You're tasked with going around, meeting new Digimon, adding them to the town. You need new and stronger Digimon to get further and further away from the village and to unlock certain areas. And basically, the game is just that. You hunt down new mons.
But basically, they read Reddit. They saw that the subreddit was complaining that it wasn't like the old ones, and it said, "Screw it, let's just make an old one."
Pretty much. And like. Ostensibly, it does a pretty good job of it. So the nostalgia factor alone will be enough for some people. Yeah. It plays pretty smoothly, but it is worth noting that it's a Vita game at heart.
And you can see that, like, it looks good, and the textures are nice, and they do a very good job with simple colors. But that's what you expect from an upscaled Vita game. Like, the textures can't be as in depth, they can't be as detailed. So therefore, what can we do? Easy just to like make them look high res, if you will.
Exactly, and it has a problem with a lack of a lot of animations. There aren't that many FMVs. A lot of the characters, when they do attacks, have a very stock animation, and it's just whatever fireworks that you're shooting off that are coming over. And a lot of the areas are pretty basic as well, like just big open deserts or volcanoes or things like that. And as a result, a lot of the game will seem pretty simple for a next gen. If you're looking for a next gen game, it's not really it, but it's sort of competent as an experience.
Is there enough for, like, keep in mind, it's been 20 years since the first wave came out. Is it enough for people who have played it 20 years ago, or is it, what's the audience?
Look, the nostalgia will get you there. You'll have fun, you'll play it for a while, but you will start hitting a difficulty wall pretty quickly. Grinding becomes a huge element of the game. Once your Digimon start dying and you're back to square one, that hurts a bit. And you remember your childhood and how much it hurt when your Digimon died as well. And I mean, like, let's face it, 20 years hasn't really eased the pain. It's 20 years.
Welcome to Old Game Plus, and we're here to talk about Masaya Nakamura, who was the founder of the company Namco, now known as Bandai Namco, and also the founder of Pac-Man, who recently passed away at the age of 91.
And Pac-Man is one of the most iconic, it was a good title to have, Father Pac-Man, but Pac-Man is one of the most iconic characters ever in gaming. And in fact, even now, there's Pac-Man Championship Edition, Pac-Man 256, he appears in Smash, I got a Pac-Man amiibo. Pac-Man's lasted a very long time.
He has, and he's been around for ages, and he was also a pioneer in the gaming industry at the time it came out, because most games were about shooting things at the time, like your spaceship shooting aliens or your person shooting other people. But Pac-Man wasn't about that. It was about navigating a maze and the strategy behind the ghosts chasing you.
Running around a dark room eating pills.
Yeah, so, but he was also appealed to a wider audience because of that, because shooting things wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but Pac-Man was a very good casual game back then.
Pac-Man was part of, there were two big groups of Namco games through gaming history. There was the arcade very early on when you had Pac-Man, Galaga, Xevious, Relix, Dig Dug and that. And then also they had another wave of very significant franchises towards the end of the arcades, and when the PlayStation came out and video games started to move to 3D at home.
Yeah, so those games were things like Tekken, the fighting game, Soul Calibur, which is another fighting but with weapons, Ridge Racer, the light gun shooters, Time Crisis and Point Blank, which we don't have anymore, which is a sad thing.
Yeah,
but,
the genre that went missing.
Yeah, and some of those games were like groundbreaking at the time, being in 3D and also the light gun concept.
And not many people are going to know this, but very early on, he bought the Japanese division of Atari so that they could bring Atari games to Japan. And that helped get them into making those games, those great arcade games.
Yeah, because Atari of Japan were handling it very wrong and couldn't seem to make any ground in there. So Namco took it over. They were originally a carnival machine making company, and turned into what we know now today as the game company.
I'm pretty happy about that change, to be honest. And he also won an Order of the Rising Sun.
So yeah, the Order of the Rising Sun was awarded by the Japanese government to him for his contribution to the Japanese industry, and that's not the game industry, that's industry in general. So that's one of the highest orders Japan gives out. So he was awarded that in 2007, and for good reason.
Oh yeah, thoroughly deserved, because I mean Namco has given billions of gamers all over the world some great gaming memories, and you look back at those games, Galaga and Pac-Man that early on, and then Ridge Racer and Tekken and that later. I mean these are great games, so yeah, well deserved that award, and yeah, we missed, but Namco's given us some great games.
And also they're still around, which is a good thing, because their competitors at the time, things like Konami, have gotten out of the gaming industry, whereas Namco is still around. They're making the Tales of series regularly. and new Tekken's on the horizon. So they're still around and they're still going strong.
Hello there, this is Matt from New Game Plus TV giving you a quick guide on how to face Mr. Shakedown. Amongst all the hard-hitting, knuckle-cracking mob bosses you fight in Yakuza 0, nothing quite holds a candle to Mr. Shakedown. Mr. Shakedown is categorized as a persistent nemesis who explores the overworld and specializes in picking fights and mugging his hapless victims of all of their money. Here's a quick guide to be better prepared for his intimidating presence, while at the same time beating him at his own game and making a quick buck or two. As far as preparation strategies go, make sure you stock as many curative items as possible, or if you aren't confident or want to cheese your way through a victory, make sure you buy plenty of heat restore items. If you want to maximize the amount and return you get from Mr. Shakedown's encounters, make sure you use the shrines located in Sotenbori and Kamurocho to influence Mr. Shakedown's encounter rate, his appearance in specific areas, and also the amount of money that you earn. Before jumping in head on, there's just a couple more things to consider. Make sure you note the total amount of what Mr. Shakedown is currently holding in his possession by hovering near his vicinity and checking right above his head. If he's packing less than 5 million yen, these encounters generally aren't worth it, so make sure you visit him again after some time until he amasses more funds. If you're feeling opportunistic, there are times where he's actually sleeping in particular locations like parks. In order to steal from him while he's asleep, just make sure you walk over his unconscious self and hold down the cross button. Be very wary because you run the risk of getting caught fairly easily if he wakes up. As Kazuma, once you get yourself into a fight, make sure you utilize the rush battle style and ensure you unlock the ability called evasive weaving. This allows you to gain some invincibility frames in between square button presses by pressing the cross button, and it lets you place yourself strategically. You will need at least 4,400,000 yen to unlock that particular ability. When you're in the battle, just make sure you keep getting as many hits in by pressing the square button, and then pressing the cross button to evade Mr. Shakedown every time he launches his attack. Make sure you use heat actions and heal whenever appropriate. If you choose to challenge Mr. Shakedown as Goro Majima, his slugger style is probably the most efficient due to being able to block as well as ease of access to heat actions. Just be wary of getting guard broken. Keep guzzling down those heat restorative items and swing for the fences. Outside of fights within the overworld, Mr. Shakedown is not exactly hard to miss due to his gargantuan height and taste for headgear. However, in order to maximize as many encounters and fights with him as possible, collecting and equipping the encounter finder pinpoints him conveniently on the overworld map, so you can get the jump on him every single time. If you're playing as Kazuma after winning against Miracle Johnson in the dance-off at Maharaja Dance Club, which is the side story 23, allows you to acquire the encounter finder. If you're representing Majima, make sure you engage in side story 58, which is located south of the East Bridge in Sotenbori. This strategy will help you grind very well in the early game, however its effectiveness may deteriorate from mid to late game. If you combine this strategy with other investments and engaging in activities within the wide sprawling world of Yakuza 0, this will truly maximize your cash flow. And with that concludes our guide on Mr. Shakedown. For more Yakuza and Japanese gaming related content, make sure you subscribe to us here at youtube.com/NewGamePlusTV. Thank you very much, now get out there and start hustling.
Tales games have been releasing in English for over 20 years now, but only in the last 2 have they made the jump to PC. Tales of Berseria released on Steam in 2015, and it afforded players plenty of options. While character and effects work were impressive, unfortunately many of the environments were as sparse as other PS3 Tales games, and the frame rate was capped at 30 frames a second. Tales of Symphonia, released on PC later that year, was even worse, limiting resolution to 720p and detail settings to those found on the PS3 re-release. Fortunately, Tales of Berseria has come to the party equipped better. Berseria's environments are far more detailed than what Zestiria had to offer, with character animation and effects work marking the best in the series. Berseria also allows for players to now natively run the game at 60 frames a second, and odds are you'll be able to, even if you have a mid-range gaming setup. Going into the graphics options, which you can at any time now by the way, will reveal a plethora of options that will put PC enthusiasts at ease. In full screen, resolution will run as high as your monitor will allow, and as low as 800 by 600. Berseria will letterbox if running at any non-widescreen aspect ratio though, so ultra-wide gamers are out of luck. Fortunately though, I was able to run the game at 4K 60 frames a second locked on a GTX 1060. Minimum system requirements include a 9-year-old graphics card and a 9-year-old CPU, so odds are integrated graphics users will be able to run the game comfortably at 30 frames a second. Running on my i7-3770 and Intel Graphics HD 4000, 5-year-old parts by the way, I was able to run at the medium preset at 720p and 30 frames a second. Employing the lowest preset at 800 by 600 got the game running at 60 frames a second. This is likely due to Berseria's origins on the PS3 in Japan. Ultimately, this means many users on even average laptops should be able to enjoy a similar experience to those on PS4 and high-end PCs. It's not all perfect though. In addition to the issues that ultra-wide monitor users will run into, the game doesn't come with any texture options. You can see that compromises were clearly made in crafting some of the game's assets as a result. On the upside though, this results in a game that only takes up about 14 gigs of hard drive space, which is nothing next to the 40 gigs that Final Fantasy XV asked for on console. So yeah, it has its ups and downs, but more than anything, it gives me hope for future Tales games to come to the platform, as well as any older titles that Bandai Namco decide to release on the PC in the future.
Now, around sort of late January, early February, Australia gets all the films listed in America in November and December. All the Oscar bait,
yeah.
Golden Globe sort of award-winning films. So we're seeing them now. La La Land's been really popular.
No movie interests me less than the premise of La La Land. I'm just putting that out there.
I really, really loved Whiplash, which is the same director, and I liked La La Land, not as much as Whiplash, but I liked it a lot. It's a love letter to sort of old Hollywood musicals and jazz. Yeah. The other thing that's out at the moment that's doing really well is Lion, which is sort of an
Australian movie.
Australian co-production at least, which is sort of a true story about a kid in India who, while sort of out with his brother, gets lost.
He gets on a train, the train takes him far away from
like the other side of the country basically, and then he's adopted by an Australian family and it sort of goes from there. Yeah. And it is an interesting film, and it was quite touching, except for the fact that I only just saw it after hearing how good it was for 3 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Nothing kills... Well, it didn't kill it, but like...
But you're more critical, because you look at things and you go...
it's going to be this good, and when it's this good, it's a disappointment.
Oh, that's fucking dumb,
There's also a bunch of other those sort of serious character dramas that are out now. Manchester by the Sea is supposed to be great. Moonlight's supposed to be really good, but not necessarily a fun film to watch.
Like Shyamalan's making movies again?
Split was alright. And then, so we've got a bunch of those sort of films. Fences, Washington, But, so there's all those sort of character dramas, if you like that. If you, I don't know, have something a bit more base... You can watch 50 Shades Darker. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Apparently that's a real quality film.
Nothing says legitimate like fan fiction on movies.
But we've also got a sort of, we now sort of, after the Oscar season goes in, you get sort of the big films coming out. So there's a couple of things coming out that might interest people. I know the first one won't interest you, Logan.
Yes, okay. So Logan is the story of an older Logan, obviously known as Wolverine, and the bad guys have won. And what happens is the United States of America is split up into 4 different factions. One part is owned by the Banners, the mutant offspring of the Banners, and there's Crimson Skull and Doctor Doom, and they all own part of America.
Except the movie universe is a little bit different to the classic Old Man Logan comic book.
So it's worse.
Yeah, so the tale sort of involves Professor Xavier rather than Hawkeye.
Okay, well
all those villains are
switch,
quite changed because they can't get them.
Yeah, and they put X-23 in it because why the fuck not?
And in the trailer, everyone is popping their claws, and like in Old Man Logan, the fact that he doesn't, sort of take his claws out is a really big part of the character. It feels different. You obviously are not
It's going to be lame. It is going to be lame as fucking lame can lame.
I didn't mind the last Wolverine film, so I don't think it'll be great, but...
If he tap dances in it, I'll watch it because Hugh Jackman, but otherwise, no.
So, Matt, it's finally happened after years of begging and praying and hoping that God would hear my answer.
Shenmue 3?
We'll get to that eventually. we're finally getting Yakuza games at a regular clip. Like, and the first part of this brand new, one of the big ones of this first big new clip.
Shenmue 3.
Close.
Okay.
Yakuza 0 for the PS4, and it is probably one of the best new games of 2017, which originally came out in 2015. But let's ignore that for the moment because Yakuza 0 is really, really good.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny that I mentioned that though, because Yakuza 0 rewinds us and takes us all the way back to 1988.
Yep.
Back when the bubble economy of Japan was going, the champagne was flowing just as hard as the cash.
Hundreds of thousands of yen were just being flown across the street, which apparently was a real thing. I have no idea. I was only born in 1988.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening in the 80s, a lot of debauchery happening, and what better place to set that in Sotenbori or Kamurocho, Tokyo?
Yeah, well, you're playing as either Kazuma Kiryu, who is a young, basically he's a thug, and Majima Goro, who is the owner of a nightclub against his will. Which presents these two really interesting stories of these two iconic characters kind of just setting the scene for them becoming into their own.
And in this time when in the 80s they're only just getting started, they're basically shown on the bum end of the Yakuza clan, where both of them getting a start in the Dojima family.
Yeah.
So you chronicle them kind of starting off as real young thugs trying to make a name for themselves, compared to previous titles in the series where
they're legends effectively.
Where they're essentially legends. So it's kind of very humble beginnings. But in terms of gameplay and mechanics, everything is still incredibly well detailed. The way they depict Sotenbori, which is Dotonbori in this
Osaka.
game, in Osaka, is so incredibly well done. Just everything from the detailing to the streets is just so amazing.
They do a really good job. Like, you figure like this is a relatively early PS4 game too.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, like this actually still looks really good. But more to the point, like it's just a really great Yakuza game. Like the fight, there's a lot of fighting styles. There's still you can play Outrun in this game. Outrun, and it's a really good version of it too. That you can do karaoke. You can kind of collect phone cards of girls and watch them in softcore porn because that's a thing you can do. But I just more love the setting. Like I love the fact it is a game set in the late 80s in Tokyo, in Tokyo and Osaka. It's something you don't really see, especially in a game at Hit the West. Like it's a really interesting setting. And if anything, the fact that it's also a prequel means that, guys, there's really no reason for you to pick this up. It's just, it's really well done.
Mechanically as well, I must agree. Even though there are less characters to play as in previous Yakuza games where you have 4 or 5 to kind of play around with, each character, both Kazuma and Majima himself, have different styles to choose from, either from going from using particular weapons and fighting styles of quick and more slower ones, but more powerful. They all have their own caveats as well of being able to grab stuff and being able to use heat actions a lot more effectively. But when it all comes down to it, Yakuza 0 is such a fantastic start to the series, and there's no better time to get into it considering Yakuza 0 is out. Yakuza Kiwami, which is a remake of the first game coming out later this year. So if you've ever been interested in the Yakuza series,
now's the time.
No better time than now.
Literally no better time than now.
Now, Tim, we mentioned at the start of the episode that Yakuza can be reduced to GTA Japan. Is that enough of a pull to get you into this game?
I don't know. It is somewhat GTA Japan, but it still has the really strange quirkiness that you get from Japanese games.
Yeah, it kind of like it and if anything, Yakuza 0 seems to be leaning even deeper into the weirdness. As in, like, there's very dramatic acceptance of phones with the cable flying through the air in slow motion and everything. There's like this 90-second clip going around of the main character winning at bowling, getting what's called getting his prize as a turkey, except it's a live chicken. He decides he doesn't want the chicken to be cooked, so he decides to keep it. I will name him Nugget.
I don't know about you, but pet chicken in the game, can you like feed it and grow it into some battle pet?
I believe it. There is actually a small gameplay component to having that chicken.
Of course there is. Of course there is.
And of course, given Japanese gaming, there is also a moment of softcore pornography.
Wouldn't be a Japanese game without it, so I suppose it fits.
I don't know, come on. You can play this game.
I could. I don't know if I would.
Yeah, fair.
It certainly is there for those that really want their mix between GTA and their weird Japanese games.
Yeah,
so,
and to be honest,
a lot of people will enjoy it.
And to be honest, seeing all the weird things that have come from this game, combined with the sort of scarcity of retail copies in Australia, I kind of want to play the game. I just need like 90 hours or whatever it is to actually play through that game.
Yes, as with most Japanese games.
As with such MMOs.
Yes, far too many hours.
Yeah.
Far too many hours. But that is it for this week. Next week, we'll be looking at early access.
At games at all forms of early access, from early access itself to greenlight and so much more. But before then, if you want to actually access that segment early, Tim,
Visit our website, www.newgameplus.tv.
like us on Facebook, facebook.com/NewGamePlusTV.
Follow our Twitter and Instagram at NewGamePlusTV.
And subscribe to us on YouTube and Twitch. We are New Game Plus TV. One word, no spaces.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Tim.
We'll see you guys next week.